The Camel is the 9th episode of the 2nd season of Parks and Rec. This is directed by Millicent and Shelton, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I really like this. I particularly liked the main narrative. We have a subplot that I'll talk about very briefly. I don't have too many thoughts on it. I didn't really like it, but it's fine as padding, and Andy is shining Ron's shoes. He has a bunion. He clearly finds the process to be quite relaxing, so Ron goes back to get his shoes shined again, and this time he makes some weird, potentially sexual, involuntary noises, and it's a bit awkward. And that's basically the extent of that part of the episode. It's fine, it's padding. I didn't mind it, but I didn't care for it. The main narrative focuses on the fact that once again, somebody has defaced the Spirit of Pony mural. And there's now a competition where each department can submit their own designs for a new mural, hopefully one that's maybe less controversial and won't be defaced as frequently. So Leslie orders the Parks department and Anne to design a new mural. And this is the bulk of the episode. And honestly, I thought it was really fun. It was really great to see people's designs. I'll talk about them in a moment. And of course, the excitement is wondering which design will be chosen. And I'm not tremendously happy with the final outcome, but I will talk about that when we get there. We basically have a whole bunch of different designs, and they get to present them pretty quickly, pretty early on into the episode. Anne had just cut out a whole bunch of stuff and had gone with a park theme, which honestly I think was one of the best ideas. What she presented didn't look great, but if they then turned that into a design with somebody who could actually draw, I think it would be pretty good. Tom had paid an artist to create something that was abstract, and it probably wasn't the best idea because it doesn't really represent the Spirit of Pony, but Tom really liked it. Donna did The Last Supper with famous people from Indiana, and the Last Supper idea is probably not a good idea. Anything that's religious is going to cause controversy, so unless there's a particularly religious department, which they're not, they're the Parks department, then probably a bad idea. But I did like the idea of famous faces from Indiana. I thought that was quite nice. Jerry seemed amazing. It was a picture created from the faces of all of the residents, and unfortunately he never really got a chance to show it off because he called it a mural, which I'd never heard of before. I've definitely heard it being called a murial instead of a mural, but I've never heard mural. And honestly, it's such a funny word. I really enjoy saying mural, as did everybody else when they made fun of him for it. April's was terrifying. I don't think I can describe April's to do it justice, but it was creative and kind of scary. And Leslie presented one that looked good, but it was depicting a tragic event from Pony's past. Is that a good idea? Maybe. Actually, I think it could have worked. Visually, it wasn't too bad. So out of all of them, I say Anne's, Jerry's, and Leslie's were genuine contenders, I think. And they all voted, and I think it was pretty predictable, but still funny when it played out that they all voted for themselves. I think Leslie's next idea was pretty good, and if they'd thought about it a little bit longer than a second, it might have been a good idea, because she suggested taking the best elements of all of their designs and combining them. It was not good, the way it turned out. So she went to Mark for some advice, and Mark said that they'd designed a camel. And I didn't know what he meant. He explained it about a second later, but apparently it is a saying that a camel is a horse designed by a committee, which definitely makes sense the more you think about it. And Mark comes up with a design that's honestly not a million miles away from Anne's design. It's very picturesque, very green with a lot of grass, and it looks pretty good. So they go to present this, and the sewage department had a very patriotic design. The officers have a dogs playing poker approach, which didn't look too bad. And Leslie realizes last minute that instead of presenting this Mark design, which looks really good, they should present the one that they as a department created together, because teamwork is part of what it's about. And they do. They present the camel. And actually, I had a lot of fun with their presentation. They weren't taking themselves seriously at that point. Although Tom was very happy, and one of the panel members judging it said that they liked the shapes. Tom was very happy with that. And the final outcome, as I said a bit earlier, I wasn't really happy with, but I also think is probably the most realistic outcome. The camel didn't win, but none of the entries won. And this is because they had realised it would be cheaper to just repair and slightly restore and slightly tweak the existing mural and retitle it than it would be to have a completely fresh mural designed. And I feel, yeah, I definitely think that's the most realistic outcome. But at the same time, I was looking forward to finding out which design they would have chosen. So I don't love it, but at the same time, I can't argue that it's definitely the most likely outcome. It's a fun episode. I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing the designs. I liked the creative process. The part of the story with Ron's bunion, I didn't really care for, but it was fine. I didn't hate it. I just wasn't that interested in it. But the main narrative, I thought was pretty good, and I've now learned the expression about a camel is a horse designed by a committee, which is pretty interesting. Not a bad episode at all. The camel was definitely pretty decent.